What happens when a city stops talking about its food scene getting better and starts proving that it already has? For years, Jacksonville residents repeated a familiar phrase, that the culinary landscape was improving. It carried optimism, but it also carried hesitation, as if the city were still waiting for validation from outside markets. In 2026, that hesitation has largely disappeared. The tone has shifted from potential to momentum. The steady cadence of restaurant openings tracked by local business reporting. The national recognition spotlighting Jacksonville's standout dining destinations. And the increasingly expansive dining coverage celebrating variety and craft all point toward a defining transition. Jacksonville's culinary identity is no longer emerging quietly. It is accelerating confidently. This acceleration is not about a single headline-grabbing opening or a one-off viral concept that fades after the buzz subsides. It is about density, repetition, and ecosystem development. It is about neighborhoods cultivating distinct flavors and operators investing meaningful capital because they believe demand is sustainable and durable. In any city, restaurant growth serves as a proxy for consumer confidence. Hospitality is expensive to build and difficult to maintain. Margins are tight, staffing is competitive. When chefs and hospitality groups commit to long-term leases, design-forward interiors, and fully staffed teams, they are placing calculated bets on population growth, disposable income, and foot traffic stability. Jacksonville in 2026 supports those bets. What distinguishes this phase from prior cycles is not merely the number of openings, but the quality of execution. Concepts are sharper, menus are more curated, branding feels intentional rather than improvised. Dining rooms are designed for atmosphere as much as efficiency. National outlets that once reserved attention for Miami, Tampa, or Orlando are now curating Jacksonville lists with seriousness. That recognition does more than flatter local pride. It recalibrates perception externally. It signals that Jacksonville is no longer a supporting character in Florida's culinary narrative. It is carving out its own lane, shaped by its geography, its demographics, and its expanding economic base. The layering of Jacksonville's food scene reveals how sustainable culinary growth actually unfolds. It rarely erupts overnight through a singular explosion. Instead, it builds district by district. A standout restaurant opens in a walkable corridor. A second chef-driven concept chooses proximity rather than distance, recognizing the power of clustering. A cocktail bar follows, extending the evening rhythm. A brunch destination gains traction on weekends. A dessert shop or wine bar rounds out the block. Before long, an ecosystem forms. Jacksonville is witnessing this pattern simultaneously across multiple neighborhoods. San Marco continues refining its pedestrian-friendly strip, blending long-standing establishments with new culinary voices and elevated interiors. Riverside and Five Points maintain their eclectic authenticity while welcoming chef-led ventures that push flavor boundaries. The beaches combine relaxed coastal fare with increasingly polished and design-conscious dining rooms where seafood traditions intersect with modern technique. Downtown, buoyed by broader revitalization efforts, is gradually layering in higher-end dining options alongside residential and mixed-use projects. Brooklyn and the Southside corridors are integrating restaurant space directly into development blueprints rather than treating it as optional retail filler. Developers understand that dining anchors lifestyle. Apartment communities prioritize ground floor culinary tenants because restaurants activate sidewalks, create energy, and make buildings more attractive to renters and buyers alike. Coverage in local publications reinforces this diversification, highlighting global cuisines, tasting menus, artisan bakeries, specialty coffee programs, craft cocktail lounges, plant-forward concepts, and international flavors that reflect a more complex demographic mix. Population growth plays a central role in driving this evolution. Professionals relocating to Jacksonville for careers in logistics, healthcare, finance, technology, and corporate headquarters bring expectations shaped by larger metropolitan markets. They are accustomed to craft beverages, authentic ethnic cuisine, experiential interiors, and thoughtful menu curation. That demand reshapes supply. At the same time, local chefs are increasingly choosing to build their careers here rather than relocating to Atlanta, Miami, or beyond. Lower overhead, compared to South Florida or major East Coast markets, allows experimentation and earlier ownership opportunities. Entrepreneurial confidence thrives where rent structures and build-out costs remain comparatively manageable. Hospitality groups monitor residential density closely. As rooftops multiply in Brooklyn, downtown, the South Side, and other mixed-use corridors, restaurant viability strengthens. Rooftops drive reservations. Reservations drive sustainability. The newest generation of Jacksonville restaurants reflects maturation in presentation. Interiors are crafted intentionally for atmosphere, shareability, and brand identity. Dining is no longer solely about food quality. It is about environment, storytelling, and social engagement. Social media amplification extends reach organically. Competition sharpens execution. When multiple operators cluster in a district, service improves, menus evolve, and differentiation becomes essential. Scarcity is replaced by refinement. The rhythm of openings, steady rather than sporadic, suggests depth in the market rather than a fleeting surge. Demand is not dependent solely on tourist seasons or event weekends. It is sustained by locals who actively engage with the culinary scene and treat dining as part of their lifestyle. Jacksonville's geographic scale enhances this momentum in ways many cities cannot replicate. As the largest city by landmass in the contiguous United States, it possesses room for multiple culinary identities to develop without cannibalizing one another. The beaches do not need to mirror Riverside. San Marco does not need to replicate downtown. 5 Points maintains its character while newer corridors cultivate their own personalities. Diversity thrives within manageable distance. National recognition adds another layer of validation, influencing tourism patterns, as visitors increasingly incorporate reservations into travel itineraries rather than focusing exclusively on beaches, sporting events, or business trips. Culinary tourism becomes a complementary revenue stream for operators, yet perhaps the most meaningful shift is internal rather than external. Residents speak about new openings with anticipation rather than cautious optimism. They plan date nights around chef collaborations. They follow tasting menu announcements and limited run pop-ups. They treat dining as part of civic identity. Jacksonville is not attempting to become New York or Miami, and it does not need to. Authenticity and consistency matter more than imitation. In 2026, the city's food scene reflects confidence rather than apology. Operators innovate and collaborate. Districts evolve organically. As culinary ecosystems strengthen, real estate feels the ripple effect. Restaurants enhance walkability, extend evening vibrancy, and elevate neighborhood desirability. They draw foot traffic that benefits adjacent retail. They increase the experiential appeal of living in specific corridors. Investors notice the clustering effect. Residents notice the livability. Momentum compounds. The culinary rise is not accidental. It is the byproduct of population growth, capital investment, demographic shifts, and entrepreneurial alignment converging simultaneously. Business reporting tracks the openings. National outlets spotlight the standouts. Local publications celebrate the diversity. Together, they document a city whose palette is expanding in rhythm with its broader economic expansion. The energy feels steady rather than speculative, confident rather than tentative. Jacksonville's food scene in 2026 is not reaching a peak. It is establishing cadence. That cadence, diverse, deliberate, and sustained, suggests a midpoint in a longer ascent that mirrors the city's overall evolution. I'm Luke Christmas, and it's always Christmas when you work with Christmas Homes.